Hello there everyone, my name is Anna and welcome to my YouTube channel, True Blue Faith. This is Home Run. I'm interrupting his nap and his space to film today's video, so he just gets to be in it. Anyways, there are so many new faces since I've last posted a video, since I've last filmed a video. Literally so many new subscribers, and I'm so thankful for that growth, and I would love to see it continue growing. But just a really special welcome if you're new here, and I'm just really honored and excited that I get to walk alongside you in your journey of faith. So if you don't know, I am currently finishing up my second year of seminary, and this past semester has just been crazy, and the classes that I'm in have been really exhausting. Not only like physically with the schoolwork, but also just like emotionally. So that's kind of why I haven't been able to post, because whenever I do have free time, I'm just drained physically and emotionally and just don't have the energy to create content. But for today's video, I wanted to give you a glimpse into one of my classes from this past semester. So I've been taking Preaching 1, which is truly just like learning how to preach and also getting the opportunity to practice preaching a couple of times. So it's a requirement for my studies, and it's also a requirement for like what I want to do, especially since I do see myself in the future preaching and just being in this space of public speaking. So anyways, I thought it would be really cool to share my first sermon, like my first sermon ever I did for this class, with you guys on my channel. So there's a couple of reasons why I want to do this. The first reason is because this is a message that I'm very passionate about. I think that will come out as you watch the video. And the other thing is, I also think it will be so cool if I look back a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years from now and just see, hopefully, how much I've grown. So the fact that this is one of the very first times that I'm actually preaching and sharing the word, and it's on video, is just very cool. So how today's video is going to work, if you're new here, most of my videos aren't like this. I usually do Christian lifestyle and devotionals. But for today's video, how it's going to work, I am going to share the context in just a minute, and then I'm just going to insert the video because it was recorded for class. And then after the video, I'm going to share some of the feedback that I got. So a couple areas of growth, as well as a couple of things that my peers and my instructor thought that I did really well and went really well in the message. So before I share today's context, I do want to invite you to go ahead and hit the subscribe button below. I would love to just see this community keep growing and for you to join this community if you have not joined yet. So please consider subscribing. So now for the context, this video, our time limit was very short compared to sermons typically. We had 10 minutes, and our context was for seminary students, so like my peers. That was who I was preaching to. So I want to expand my context though from just my seminary peers to just future ministry leaders or current ministry leaders in general, because I think that this message is also for those people. And another background areas that we got to choose are text. So it was a non-narrative text, so not a story, and I chose to be from the New Testament. So you'll see that also. Okay, so here it is. Before moving to Waco, Texas for seminary, I've lived in Iowa my entire life. I am an Iowa girl in my heart, and I love the Midwest. But there is one thing about the Midwest that isn't so great, and that is the weather. About 2 weeks ago, when Texas got hit by that snowstorm, I got stuck in Iowa, and I saw people walking around in t-shirts because it was 15 degrees outside. 15 degrees above zero called to lose the jackets, and yes, there was still about 10 inches of snow on the ground at this time. Another unique thing about Iowa weather is that in the summer we get tornadoes. Last summer alone, I got to witness 2 tornadoes from the safety of my back deck. But guess how many of those tornadoes were predicted the day before, or even the morning before? None. In Iowa, the only way that you can listen to the morning weather report is that if you're ready for your day to be completely flipped upside down by 11 a.m. No one wants to be a weatherman or a weatherwoman in Iowa because what they say is going to happen versus what actually happens makes it really hard to trust them. And imagine having a job where people can't trust you. Well, maybe as future leaders in ministry, we don't have to imagine because we're already there. There have been many things that I've learned in seminary that have been humbling, but there's one thing that I keep coming back to as really hard for me to wrap my head around, not only how it happened, but what it means for me and for you as future leaders. It's how the church has hurt so many people in its history, and not only how it's hurt so many people, but how it's been swept under the rug. In our small bubble of classes with our classmates who share the same interests and values as us, it's really tempting to just become comfortable and passive to what's going on outside of these walls. But there's a danger that comes with becoming comfortable. So some of us may already know what we as future leaders are up against outside of these walls, and some of us may have an idea, but we just want to keep it an arm's length away. The hurt of the church goes back hundreds of years, but just recently, there's been a serious scandal that's been brought to light. If you haven't yet heard of Ravi Zacharias, as I share his story with you, it may make you uncomfortable. But I want to challenge you to truly think of the implications of this leader's actions of the church, and also what it means for you as a future leader. Ravi Zacharias was known as a faithful witness, committed to the truth of the gospel, and a great evangelist as he led hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people to Christ. Ravi was a world leader in which many people loved him, looked up to him, and learned from him as he shared the gospel. In the last 10 years, there had been multiple allegations of sexual misconduct or sexual harassment that had been swept under the rug. In May of 2020, Ravi passed away, and just 10 months later, February of 2021, investigations confirmed hundreds of allegations of sexual misconduct and harassment in his ministry. Ravi would preach a sermon to thousands and then step off stage to engage in sexual misconduct with female massage therapists or staff who traveled and toured with him. Many of these people that he ministered to were young adults who now sit empty-handed, confused, and hurt by his ministry. As future leaders and ministers, it's important for us to recognize the damage that has been done. People are hurting from poor leadership in the church, and it's important to see how false wisdom has guided so many astray and why true wisdom is more important than ever. Listen as I read God's word from James chapter 3 as the author compares false wisdom from true wisdom, starting in verse 13. Who is wise and understanding among you? Let them show it by their good life, by deeds done in humility that comes from wisdom. But if you harbor selfish ambition in your hearts, do not boast about it or deny the truth. Such wisdom does not come down from heaven, but it is earthly, unspiritual, and demonic. For where you have envy and selfish ambition, there you find disorder in every evil practice. But the wisdom that comes from heaven is first of all pure, then peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy and good fruit, impartial and sincere. Peacemakers who sow in peace reap a harvest of righteousness. In the book of James, the author shares Christian standards that apply to all Christians, but particularly leaders and teachers in the church. Even though this passage doesn't explicitly mention it, we know from earlier chapters that James is teaching and speaking about teachers. James recognizes that teachers shall be held to a higher standard because they have the power to bring new life and good news to people, but they also can turn people away from God. If you're a checklist kind of person like I am, James makes it easy for us as he lists 8 characteristics of what true wisdom looks like. James says, wisdom that comes from heaven is first of all pure, then peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy and good fruit, impartial, and sincere. Now the question is, how do I know if what I'm saying, teaching, or doing is exemplifying true wisdom? I truly believe with my heart that leaders do not go into ministry with the intention to hurt people. And James isn't sharing this message because he thinks that the temptations of false wisdom is not a problem. James knows that this is a problem, and he is warning leaders, saying, do not follow this road of false wisdom. It ends in a dead end. James contrasts true wisdom from false wisdom by illustrating that false wisdom stems from envy or selfish ambition. False wisdom destroys and creates division. True wisdom is peace-loving and considerate. False wisdom is an earthly source. True wisdom is pure and full of mercy. False wisdom is unspiritual and belongs to the natural world. True wisdom belongs to the divine God and produces good fruit. False wisdom is from the devil. True wisdom is from heaven. False wisdom hurts. True wisdom loves. False wisdom divides. True wisdom unites. False wisdom is from the devil. True wisdom is from heaven. So to be confident in the true wisdom is to recognize that there is false wisdom. But don't give way. You can meet false wisdom at the door. You can meet the temptations to say or do something that do not reflect the character of Christ, but then close the door and turn away. False wisdom is there and it's going to be a part of your ministry, but that does not mean that you need to act on it. As future leaders, we will have the opportunity to speak love and life into people. Don't compromise that opportunity with earthly desires. If your actions don't respect the love that you share on stage or at a coffee meeting, then you may actually be turning people away from God. The earth and the church teach 2 different things. False wisdom and true wisdom do not walk together. The result of earthly wisdom is confusion, anger, fear, and hurt. False wisdom doesn't just hurt the person living by it, but it affects so many. As we can see from Ravi's example, the thousands of people who would hear Ravi preach, but then now hear about his actions, are confused, angry, and hurt. This story of Ravi Zacharias, unfortunately, is not a standalone story. People are hurt by the church when they feel unheard or unseen. People are hurt by the church when they can't find a community. People are hurt by the church when they really need something, but then they are dismissed. I have been hurt by church leadership, which has actually led me to standing here this morning with you all. I had a very heartbreaking experience with the leader at my home church, and I had 2 options. I could have easily let it really tear me down and turn me away from my faith, or I could do something about it. And so I did something about it, and I vowed to myself that coming to seminary, I would give God the space to work through me and meet people who have been wounded and hurt by the church and love them. One thing that makes us, as future ministers, different from Iowa weathermen is that we actually know the truth. We are not guessing on the least dependent Iowa weather. We are sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ and a God who loves more than we can imagine. This is good news for us. And because of this, we can be a part of church history where the narrative changes from hurt to love. If we stick to true wisdom, if we stick to Scripture, if we stick to Jesus Christ and his love, then we can start to rebuild trust in and for the church. I want to challenge you today to recognize the beautiful but also hurtful history of the church. I want to challenge you today to not get comfortable with those sitting next to you in the pews, but recognize that outside of these walls, the world needs what Jesus has equipped you with. The world needs true wisdom that is pure. The world needs true wisdom that is loving. The world needs true wisdom that is considerate. The world needs true wisdom that is full of peace and full of mercy. The world needs true wisdom that is sincere and produces good fruit. We are not to sweep false wisdom under the rug or turn our backs to our brothers and sisters that have been hurt by the church. James has told us what true wisdom looks like, and it is now our calling to not only teach it, but live it, and point people to the love of Jesus. Thank you. Okay, so if you've made it this far, thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching. This was my first real assignment for this class, my first time preaching, and it's something that is really exciting. Luckily, I am very comfortable with public speaking because I did grow up in dance and cheer and show choir, and I did pageants. So it is something that I'm comfortable with and I actually really enjoy. So that kind of helped as I was preparing for this message, but there's still just so much power to sharing God's word and sharing the Bible and doing a message, and it's just a really great and unique experience. So as I share my feedback, I think I'm going to start with areas of growth, and then I'll end with the affirmations that I received. So the first area of growth was to get to the biblical text quicker. So it turns out I didn't get to the biblical text until 4 minutes, or even after 4 minutes of this message, and so out of a 10-minute message, that's a really long time to be in the introduction. Fortunately, I think that this introduction is pretty captivating, so I don't think it feels super long even as I watch it back. I do think it was a solid introduction, but just for the future, I probably would need to cut that down to be shorter. The second area of growth was that I kind of got stuck behind the pulpit. So I'm generally a smaller person. I'm 5'3", just pretty petite. So in the pulpit is this big wooden block kind of, and I just got stuck behind it. So for the future, it was recommended that I use my arms more and I find ways to not just feel like I'm hidden behind the pulpit, but actually can stand out. So even though in this one I did use my arms to talk about, to help tell the story, I just could have used them overall because I typically just got stuck in this position. So just use more body language. And then the third area of growth was when it came to eye contact. So although I wasn't really stuck on my notes that much and I was looking up, I actually wasn't connecting with people in my audience, which I did realize at the end. Okay. So I wasn't actually making eye contact and connection with the audience and the people who are listening. So just for the future, yes, you can look up and you can scan the room, but to go on a whole different level and connect with the audience is actually making eye contact, holding that eye contact for a couple of seconds, and just truly making that connection. Okay, so now for the affirmation. I don't think I explained this. So 2 to 3 preachers go in a day, and then at the end of class all comes together and you receive this feedback, affirmations, and areas of growth from your peers and from your professor. So that's kind of where I'm getting these from. So now for affirmations. The first one is that this message is very important. It hit for my peers. I think it will hit for other future ministry leaders. It's just something that needs to be talked about. It's not, as I said, ministry leaders just want to kind of throw the hurt in the past under the rug and not really discuss it and sit in it and dwell on it. So I received a lot of positive feedback for just kind of taking a risk and talking about it. And then building off of that, my second affirmation was that I truly named the hurt. So I didn't just skid around it. I talked about Ravi Zacharias specifically. So I named it, which is it was really uncomfortable But I named it, and I named an example, and that was really powerful for my audience. And then the third affirmation was the illustrations that I used and the stories that I used were good. They hit home. They were relatable, and I just received feedback that I'm a good storyteller. So that is a good compliment, and I think that is a really great way to be able to connect with an audience, is that to use illustrations to, engage your audience and get your point across. Because you can say it so many different ways, but sometimes through an illustration, it just hits. So anyways, those were the feedback I received, and those were the affirmations I received, and I'm just really thankful that I had a safe environment to practice this and share this message. And as I said, this is my first time, and it's exciting and it's fun, but there's also so much room for growth. So as I share it with the YouTube channel and the YouTube world, I would ask that you are friendly if you want to leave a comment. If not, I don't have a problem deleting mean comments, because no one needs to see that. So just keep that in mind if you want to leave a comment. And with that being said, I hope that if you are a seminary student, a ministry leader, a future ministry leader, or you're just hanging out, I hope that you also found this message to be impactful, and I hope that you enjoyed it. Before we go, I would love for you to leave a comment, hit the like button, or share this video with your friends, and if you haven't yet subscribed, please consider subscribing. I will be back so soon. The semester is so close to being over, with more videos. I have so many planned in the back of my mind. It's just the execution where I'm kind of getting stuck. And I also am going to share my sermon 2, which was a longer sermon, in the upcoming weeks. So make sure to keep your eye out for that. And with that being said, I hope that you all stay safe and that you all stay healthy, and that I will see you guys next time. God bless.